Yeah. The point is, though, that this is how I believe, from my information, Yani, this is how societies were, and that's why you hear these stories of the Sahaba divorced, married. The Atika, who is like she married 9 different Sahaba, and they all shuhada. She's known for that. And this is because it's more of this rural community closeness.
You'll see a tree and there's a bunch of cigarette butts, lighting up at night, and you can tell they're all drinking there. Now they do that. It's always under the tree, either a wedding on Eid, subhanAllah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of the time. Or the worst one is at funeral. The worst one is at and it's, I haven't necessarily been surrounded by that, but because I always grew up surrounded by women there, they would say to me, "I don't know, don't go over there, come back here." Do you know what I mean? Don't go. Do you understand? Because what will happen? You get drunk people coming up, getting involved in the wedding, and then going back to under the tree, and then they'll try and call you over. Oh, you're the English kid. Come over. And then my mum would be like, "No, don't go over there."
Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Mind Heights episode 151. So yeah, bro, I was listening to this podcast. They were talking about marriage, and they were talking about marriage with a guy who's been setting people up, trying to help people get married for about 10, 20 years, like a long time. So I feel like, a lot of people, they judge what is going on amongst Muslims and how Muslims are trying to get married and what's happening with Muslim marriages based on social media, for example, like what they read on social media. And that might not always be representative of what's going on in the streets. But this guy, he's doing a lot of marriage events, okay, like real in-person marriage events.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he does them in the UK, in the US, in Canada. He's done them in even Turkey, Indonesia, many places, yeah. And he's got over 10 years doing this. So what he says, I actually would kind of take that seriously, assuming, he's telling the truth and everything. He's got his ear to the ground. So a lot of the podcast was kind of him. He was kind of moaning, to be honest. He was kind of moaning about the situation. And there are a few trends that he mentioned that he was seeing. And I thought we could just talk about them because a lot of people, they claim and they say that, it's hard to get married. And, what could the reasons be? Okay. So first, there is the whole age kind of topic. And there's many ways we can cut and chop and slice this. So you've got the issue where a lot of people are delaying marriage, I feel. That's what he was saying anyway. A lot of people are delaying marriage, which means that they might be saying, I just didn't find the right person. A man might be saying, I need to save up more money. A woman might be saying, I want to focus on education or career first. I don't think many men say that, right? Do men say, I want to focus on my career before getting married? I don't think so, right?
I think they do.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
Absolutely. It depends what level, what kind of man we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because are we talking about the man who wants to adhere to Islam as much as possible? Where is Islam fit in his priorities?
I mean, average Muslim,
Yeah. Depends. I think me and you, we have very different perceptions of what the average Muslim is. Most Muslims I meet are just not practicing. So my perception of the average Muslim is someone who puts it kind of on the sideline.
Yeah, the average Muslim, I would say, isn't fully practicing.
Oh yeah, that's a preview of another episode that we did. Okay. I was trying to preemptively find that episode that we did on marriage.
Okay.
Just to refer back to it because we spoke about this a little bit before. But yeah, go on.
The average Muslim, I would say, has a struggling relationship with Salah, for example, right? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Yeah. So someone who definitely, they believe in the Shahada, they maybe they can read the Quran, they do fast at Ramadan, they do wish to be more adherent to Islam. When it comes to Salah, they might be on and off praying, right? Is that the average, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Allah yahdina jami'an, yeah? So someone like that, so you're saying that even a man, let's say he's got a bachelor's degree and he's got 2, 3, 4, 5 years experience working. He might be saying, I don't want to get married because first I want to focus on career, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a delay. Look, I think across the Muslim world, both Western and, Islamic world, everybody is delaying marriage, but for different reasons. Some is out of their hand and some because of... so some may choose to because of they want to, they out of their own choice and their own volition, they're seeking a career, they're seeking to get this financial stability, which they may never reach to an adequate level anyway. not everybody's destined to have that kind of financial freedom lifestyle that everybody chases on YouTube and stuff. At the moment, I think that is a thing. But also, like, maybe more so in the Muslim world, it's like the cultural expectations of what one requires to get married, whether it's like a house, a car, a job, gold, jhez, which is what we would say, like, be able to buy all these appliances and all this sort of stuff and blah blah blah. That can also be something that sets people back.
Yes.
So there's people that are, at least locally in Tunisia, that are just very, I'd say, quite old, and they still haven't got married yet because they're quite, they're trying to live up to this thing.
Yeah. So in the Muslim world, like, I would say women are not so much delaying. Men are delaying hardcore by force, right? Involuntarily.
No, I would flip that personally. I would say it's the other way around. I think men delay more here in like Western world, but in the Muslim world, because you said Muslim world that men are choosing to delay. Is that right?
No, men are not choosing. They're being forced to delay.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, men are being forced to delay. Maybe not by the woman specifically. It can be often.
Not even. Yeah.
But the culture surrounding it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so sad, bro, because you see a man who at 20 or 25, he would happily get married, right? Yeah. And he would happily, like, even take on the responsibility of providing and all of that. He just wants to get on with his life, get married and have kids and everything. But like, he's even got a job, but he just can't get married because let's say you're earning, like, imagine you're earning £1,000 a month, you're saving like very little of that, and then the cost of getting married is like £20,000, £30,000.
Yeah,
it's just literally impossible.
And
for most people, yeah.
There is this forced notion of adapting to the times and the climate, which is, when it comes to work, when it comes to, sharing loads, when it comes to not just sharing the load, in terms of actual action, but sharing the financial burdens of rent and bills and stuff like that. Where does that discussion get had? Since I've got
But does
married,
that even happen in the Muslim world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it does. I'm pretty sure it does, only because I'm just thinking of my family and examples. Like, I know that I've got a cousin in Tunisia who's married, and she's got a child, and my aunt and uncle look after her, after the children. Sorry. Yeah. So both parents work. In a little village, so to speak. So
that's definitely a reality, right? Because it's hard times. It's definitely hard times, and I think especially in the Muslim world, a lot of the time it's not a case of the woman is working to have like more of the luxuries. It's just survival kind of thing, right?
But one could argue that's the same here, bro. Really and truthfully,
it depends on, I guess, the job that the husband has.
Yeah, I think so. But then once again, you fall into that: shall I delay until I try and get this magical job that will pay for everything, or do I just get married when I can, as soon as I can, and share that load with my wife, who's probably got a job already?
Yeah. It's like, the thing is, I feel like this discussion of sharing costs and stuff, would that even happen? Would that conversation even happen before marriage?
It depends. So if you've found somebody, because let's say you encountered someone, let's say you weren't even trying to get married, right? And I don't know, you've encountered someone and you're just like, if I miss this opportunity, this is a very good sister, for example. I just need to put my trust in Allah and whatever. Okay. But then you could get involved in that situation. You could then want to speak to the wali and whatever. But then you look at your finances, look at your situation, like, how would I actually manage this? Now, unless you're going to do some when I say new age, let's say we call it a new age methodology, which is like, get married, do the nikah, but then carry on living in each other's houses until you get to the point you need to get to, which some people have suggested. I do consider that quite a new age phenomenon. I don't think anything wrong with it, but people the older generations aren't used to that. Sorry, my camera is all over the place today. The older generation isn't used to that. So unless you do that, you're going to be stuck in this situation where you're going to I'm going to have to get married and try and let's move in. One of the two are going to get impatient, either positively impatient or negatively. Positive impatience would be, okay, let's just share the costs and we'll try and do things together. Negative impatience will be, right, we're not doing this anymore. We're calling it off. Bye-bye. So there's, and to be honest, you can only have one or the other, because if you've got neither of that, all you're doing is then you're just creating more space and time for sin, mistakes, whatever to happen, right? Because you're involved with this individual, but you're just not getting married. And you see that even, I've seen that in Tunisia quite a lot. I see that abroad in the Muslim world, where it's like, oh, they're engaged and they've been engaged for like 10 years. Do you know what I mean? They're not actually married. They haven't done nikah because the father's old school and he refuses to let the man have that kind of control over her until he's actually going to marry her properly, and all of this sort of stuff, right? So yeah, it's a complicated mixed bag, really, of circumstances. I think.
Yeah. So you do think that in the West, it's more so the women might delay than the men, right? But although the men might also be delaying it.
I think men delay their interest in getting married, so they won't even start looking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Till they're like 27 or something.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with men, maybe. And then women don't want to wait too long. Like women don't necessarily, I think, on average, don't want to wait until they're, let's say, 30, because some men get married at 30. So let's say 30 is an age. Women don't want to wait that long. Women would rather get married sooner, and that's why. And they've got more choice in the sense that it's normative for them to marry someone older than them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then hypothetically, that person older than them would have more life experience, more chances of them having a better job or better career already set up, and that kind of thing. So women aren't going to delay in that regard. Men will delay though, because they want to reach that. I mean, my wife's 25. I'm 28. 3-4 years older than my wife. So I've got that kind of 4 years experience.
Head start, bro.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing. Like my wife's a triplet. Okay, so she's got 2 brothers as well, and they're 25. So when I compare what they've been through and what I've been through, we're kind of leveling out now because we're at that age.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I was getting married, they were still like quite young. In that sense.
I see that.
So that's what.
So you're saying basically like the men might delay, and I've seen this maybe. Yeah, the men might delay getting married till 27, 8, whatever. They won't even look. Maybe it's because they're just enjoying the single life. They're making their money and they're keeping a lot of the money, maybe even, and they just want to delay that responsibility a bit. And I think they've also been influenced to feel like, 30 is not even late to get married.
Possibly. I mean, when you say, enjoying the single life, I don't know if that's real, because the only time you can enjoy the single life is if you know what the married life is like. Do you understand what I mean?
No, when I say that though, I'm not saying it's a real thing. I'm saying also that's what they would maybe
possibly
think.
Yeah. Because, I think every guy wants to get married. I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to get married, but I think that they are maybe too picky and don't understand and don't know what they want, right?
Yeah.
I think settling down comes with certain sacrifices that they have to make with their own selves, not in terms of money and stuff. I'm talking about their own behavior, their own personality.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And men, a lot of men want to have their cake and eat it too, in that sense. Okay, so they want to have that bachelor freedom with the perks of a wife at the same time.
Yeah.
They want to be able to do and be and go everywhere they want, like they are now, but also have the perks of someone at home waiting for them. And I think you've got to be ready not to just be a husband or not to just be a partner of somebody. You've got to be ready to be a family man.
Yeah.
You've got to be family orientated from the get-go.
Do you think maybe that behavior is subconsciously justified because a lot of men who now are 27, 8, 9, whatever, a lot of them, they would have seen their dads not at home that much, right? So not at home with the kids, with their wife, right? However, so they think that's normal, right? Because they grew up not seeing their dad that much, right? But obviously their dad might have not been in because he's working, right? Whereas nowadays you might not be home because you're like, at your friend's house playing PlayStation, right? Or at a shisha place or whatever, So maybe subconsciously it's like, it's normal that I'm not at home that much. But the difference is what you're doing when you're not at home.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like we've spoke about this time and time again, I think, on Mind Heist about, fathers influencing us in a particular way. All of my life that my father was in the UK, he was like at home 95% of the time. He would go out maybe for like a few hours in the morning every, maybe once or twice a week to a coffee shop, sit with a few guys and come back home, before midday. That would be the extent of his sort of socializing outside. So I grew up with him always being around. He was either at work or at home. And because of that, I find that that's the natural thing.
Right.
So when I started, like when I was a teenager and
That's not very
out,
normal for North Africa.
No, maybe not. No, in Tunisia it's very different.
Yeah,
when we're
yeah.
in Tunisia, he is out all the time.
Oh, right.
You know, he's out all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just because he knows more people there and it's more whatever. There was also a work element there and stuff that he was chasing to do, but he'd always be out. But at least then, I had the option of always being with him. Do you get me? So like, I don't see it as, oh, that's his time on his own. It was still considered family time because I'm with him, right? He would never turn me down. I'd be with him.
So you're saying you'd go out with your dad in Tunisia?
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay,
I found
good.
that also like a bonding thing.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? SubhanAllah. So yeah, when I started going out quite a lot when I was a teenager in the UK, I was, my parents were on my case, bro. My mum would always say this thing like, you need to pick what you're doing. Don't join the daytime with the nighttime. Like, either go out in the day and come back home, or go out quickly in the evening, like to your friend's house or something, and then come back. But don't go out in the morning and stay all the way till like 11 o'clock at night and come back home. Do you know what I mean? Like my mum will probably be listening to this, and she'll remember that she wishes to say this to me, right? So stuff like that. Like I remember it got to a point where I was out too much, and then my dad was getting upset with me, my mum was getting upset with me, and then I think when I started practicing, especially, I slowed it down in terms of socializing for the sake of socializing. Then I'd be out. If I was out, I'd be at like the masjid, or I'd try and go to a lecture, or I'd be with some good brothers or whatever. But the good thing about that is that those brothers were very in touch with my family, if you know what I mean. Like they might have come around a few times. My mum knew they were good people, so she would invite them around and stuff like that. But before that, I had a lot of non-Muslim friends, so I'm sure my parents were really worried about me and where I'm up to and where I am, right? So
yeah, very different when your kids are with good company, Annie.
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
Big difference. And so if the men might be delaying until those kind of late 20s, 30s kind of thing, the sisters probably they're delaying, like some of them, I hear this a lot. I don't know how true it is, but I do believe there's an element of truth that they do have this thing where I need to work on my career. But why do women have it where men might not have it is because the reality is that when you have kids, you can't work on your career if you like, right? So they think they have to get that kind of done now in their earlier years, but they're not. I'm sure it leads to them delaying until 30 and beyond.
Yeah,
but I think they never imagined it like that. Like maybe they thought I'll delay it till I'm 25, right? Not 30, 35.
We're missing a key point here, though, that most women, I would say, are passive participants in the whole marriage process. They're not going out seeking husbands.
No.
Right? Generally, they are basically waiting for somebody to come and ask for their hand. And there's not much they can do to spur that on,
But what they do is they can say no.
Yeah, they can say no. But if you're sitting there and nobody knows who you are, nobody, you haven't got a family network of people, you're not in a Muslim dominated area, whatever it is, you're not known, because you're less likely to be known as a sister, really. You're not going to get up and do the khutbah every week. Do you know what I mean? So people are going to know you a bit less. So unless you're well connected, you're going to struggle in that regard. You could have somebody, like, you could be a father of a daughter and you could have somebody in mind, but are you really going to approach the guy? Or are you going to try and like give hints or something? Like, how do you do that? It's a bit weird, right? So there's all of that. There's all of these sort of politics.
But what I'm talking about though is you're right. Like women are not going out there proposing to people, but when they get approached and they've got this mindset where it's like, no, not yet. Now it's too early now. They're just going to say no.
Yeah, but the problem
until
is,
a certain age.
Yeah, but the thing is with a woman that she's going to have that dilemma where it's like, it depends, doesn't it? If she's constantly getting people proposing to her all the time because she's well known, then maybe she won't fear too much. Okay, up until a certain point, right? When she's like, I've delayed too much. But when she's like getting them very sparsely, few and far between, and maybe years and years goes by and no one's ever be interested, they're getting older, etc. Then they're like, well, if I don't say yes now, what if I? Do you understand? And
yes,
they might have siblings as well that may have struggled getting married, or friends as well in that area that have struggled getting married, and that influences them. Like, oh my God, look, sister so and so. Actually, like I've got an auntie, for example, that just said no, and this is in Tunisia. Said no every time there was a reason. She said no, and SubhanAllah, now she's 50 something and she never got married. She's never been married, and
Yes.
Allah knows best. She's likely not to, at this age. That's not in her framework that she's going to get married now. That's it. It's kind of like, that's it. So when she speaks about herself, she's like, I never got married. I raised you guys. I looked after you, as in me and my sisters and stuff. So we always keep that in mind. She's like a second mother to us. So that's the thing as well. Like I can imagine at her age, she found it very comfortable to say, oh no, you know what? I need to stay, because she was basically very strong about wanting to stay with my grandmother to look after her and stuff like that. So she's like, if you don't, there was certain men, subhanAllah, that made it a shart that, oh no, you can't just come and see your mum whenever you want. You're my wife now, blah, blah, blah. Or we're going to skip town. We're going to move somewhere else. She's like, no, if I can't see my mum wherever I want, then you got to imagine there's dynamics there and all sorts of stuff. So it's like, there is that fear. If you keep saying no, maybe you'll never have anyone left to say no to.
No doubt. And I do feel like that's the predominant feeling. I'm just saying there must be some element of I've got to work on this now, otherwise this and that. And there's all these, this is the thing, like social media warps reality perhaps, right? Because these stories, I'll tell you, for example, a story like, I got married when I was young. I was like fresh out of uni, or I didn't even go uni. I got married. Now I'm 32. I'm divorced. I have no skills. My husband didn't leave me with anything. I can't make a living now, right? So this is like the poster child story that is spread. It's the kind of thing that spreads on social media. And some people even like really push it out there, and because of these stories, it plants a seed in the mind of a woman where she might be like, oh yeah, I do need to work on my career, because otherwise, if once I get married and have children, I'm not working, then, what if this happens with my husband, and I need some experience, I need some sort of CV. So these I feel like these ideas are, these seeds are being planted in the mind as well, which again encourages delaying a bit as well.
No, absolutely. And I think, there is that kind of worst case scenario for a woman where it's like, oh, I'm divorced now and I've got kids, and how am I going to survive, and I'm on my own, etc. I remember my dad, subhanAllah, may Allah have mercy on him. I remember when he was talking about my sisters getting married and stuff, he was talking to me, and he said, because he's got a couple of apartments in Tunisia, and he was like, I'm going to leave the apartments for your sisters. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? I don't know if they'll ever move there. And he goes, well, if they ever get married in Tunisia and something bad happens, they've always got a house that they can call theirs, and it's like a insurance policy, so to speak. So like, I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh. Like, they haven't even got married yet, and you're talking about them getting divorced. But no, that's just how a father thinks. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a father of daughters, which I'm not, but if I was, I'm sure I'd think the same thing. Like, okay, one day this daughter of mine is going to marry some guy and go off somewhere, but if it doesn't work out, like, she might not have a home to go back to. Like, if the father's not around anymore, and my father isn't around anymore. So if my sisters hypothetically were to get married, it was to go south, they might not have a home to come back to. Like, what happens then? So I don't blame women a lot of the time. I really don't. I think a lot of it is out of their hands. I think society's put them in a particular position where they're not going to have that comfort to go and approach somebody that they actually do think is a decent human being, and they can marry them. And at the same time, like, men can infinitely propose to however many women they can throughout their whole life. There's men that are, 40, 50 that still go and get married. It's not, do you understand? They may have been divorced a few times or whatever, and they're still going to get married. I had an uncle that was, I don't even know how old he was with me, and I swear to God, my dad's uncle. So you can imagine. And I remember him getting married at a very, very elderly age, and then he passed away not too long later. So, but if a woman was to do that, societally speaking, it's unheard of, at least in the Muslim world, as far as I know.
I mean, older women, I've seen them marry, I've heard of them marry in Algeria. They marry, I mean, it's rare to find an older woman who has not previously been married, of course, right? Okay, so an older woman might get married, yes, to another man who's either divorced, he's lost his wife recently or something. So I've definitely heard of that kind of thing.
There you go then.
Yeah.
But in terms of them initiating that, I don't know.
Oh, of course not. That's a bit trickier. But you know what it is? It's like, I know women don't like actively go to their parents or go to someone and say, look, I want to ask about that person, right? They don't do that. But I feel like the parents or the mother or whatever will do that on her behalf, kind of thing, and kind of plant that seed, plant the idea of, my daughter's kind of available, kind of thing. So it's done in a different way. It's not as direct. And I suppose you're right. Like, a man has more control because he can say, I want her, right? Whereas
Yeah.
the girl is more like, if her mom sees someone that she thinks is
Oh,
good,
yeah.
then her mother. So it's more the mother and father filtering out people, or thinking of specific people.
And that just shows like the importance of a parental involvement in this whole sort of story, right? And I think like community is very important. Number one, you have to have a good Muslim community around you.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that because I am broken off from the Muslim community quite a
Yeah.
way. Maybe I could do a lot better. I could be more involved with the local community a lot more, but alas, that is the situation I'm in. However, what it does make me think is like, look, we are, we have peers that aren't married yet, whatever, and they're the same age as us and stuff. But we're not really going to solve many problems now. What we need to think about a lot is like, how are we going to sort this out for the next generation? Like, I picked up my son yesterday just to carry him, and I was like, oh my God, you're so heavy. And then I realized, bro, he's like almost 5 years old. Like, where's the
Yeah.
time gone, subhanAllah? And then I know that I'm going to blink and he's going to be like, oh, Dad, I'm interested in
Marriage
so-and-so.
age, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, bro, I made mine nice like last week. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You
And that's
understand?
what I wanted to say. Like, for each of these points that I'm going to bring up, like, when I was listening to this podcast, I was thinking, well, if you're religious and you have a network of religious kind of Muslims, sometimes these are really less of issues, right? So, for example, with delaying marriage, like, both the men, women are not really looking to delay marriage. I do think it's like, it's kind of fine. Like, if you're a man, you're like, you leave it till you're 25, 6, 7. Like, if there's a reason for that, and it's not causing issues for you, then that might be a good thing, to establish yourself or to do something, right? Like, one thing I noticed is building a business when you're married is just very different to when you're single, So, there are these things you can take into account. But yeah, so the more religious kind of Muslims, they're going to not delay so much, right? So a man might be 26, he's looking to get married, and then there's the kind of sisters he might be looking at are like 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that kind of age. And it kind of makes sense. Like, neither side is like really delaying. But then you get the issue of, okay, if you're like 24, you're trying to get married, you're not going to have the car, you're not going to have the house, you're not going to have this and that per se. You might be still a bit junior in your career, whatever. But again, when you're proposing to a more religious person, they'll be more inclined to kind of, put that aside a little bit at least. If you seem to be a good person, you come from a good family, etc.
You reminded me when you said 24, I'm pretty sure that's how old I was when I got married. And I just had this thought in my head. I was still at uni, and I drove up to my in-laws' house for the first time in my little rickety like Renault Clio, bro. And I remember having like fumbling trying to get out of the car because it was such a small car, and I packed my whole family into my little car, And we it wasn't like a 4-door car, bro. It was like 2 doors. So imagine my whole I've got very, very like, alhamdulillah, what I can say is alhamdulillah. But it just shows like, I think if you were to strip away everything, like strip away the cultural tendencies, strip away the money issues, strip away everything, get a man and get a woman on their own and ask them without any sort of outside influences, would you like to get married? And I'm sure both of them would say yes. You know what I mean? I think that's the important thing we need to focus on. I think it's not that Muslims don't want to get married or don't want to have a partner. I think they do. And I think I don't think I want to blame them for too much of the outside influences that are occurring. Because you've got to remember, like, even in Western non-Muslim culture, right, the idea of, monogamy and one the one, so to speak, that kind of relationship. Soulmate. Everybody's looking for the one, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is. Every movie's about that. Every movie's got a love sequence in the sense that a love interest, whatever you want to call it, that kind of thing. So it's like, that's it. That's what the whole world talks about now. That's the normal, thing in the world. So, when it comes to that element of things, yeah, I think they'd want to, and I think it's a challenge, and I think it's not. I mean, I don't know how challenging it was for you to get married. I don't think it was too challenging for me. But like, actually, there's brothers that I know since I started practicing, maybe 10 years ago, and 10 years later, they're still not married. I remember them wanting to get married back then, and they were older than me back then, and they're still having issues and having hurdles now. So it's not, even if you're a brother and you have all the free passes to propose to however many people you want, in the sense like, oh, this one doesn't work, let me find someone else, kind of thing. It still isn't guaranteed, and it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Well, I would say I feel like I fall into a big bucket of men, right? When it comes to like how my journey of trying to get married.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this many times. So it's like you want to get married, like you completely like want to get married from age 20 maybe, right?
Yeah.
I got married much later than that. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I would even say 18, right? Like
Yeah.
I was even like, I'm not talking about at 18 I wanted to, have a halal girlfriend. No, like I'm talking about marriage, and I'm understanding what that comes with and responsibility and all of that. And I was cool with that. Yeah. At 18, right? So I was like,
so you wanted to get married at 18?
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I would have actually, like maybe I was naive or whatever, but I would have actually gone for it, right?
Yeah.
But for many years, and beyond the 18, many years, I just was like, yeah, like I'm not there. I'm not on the level.
So what is that to you? What was that to you? What was there?
No, I mean,
to you?
I took a long time to even make a living where I was like, would be able to live like on my own, like live, like make a living. Like, cause I was just like studying, and I think I was studying a lot just to do something that seemed productive, and to avoid the intimidating like world of getting a job, really. And like I really hated this idea of 9 to 5 and office work, all of that. So in order to avoid that, I'm like, yeah, let me do like a master's degree and stuff, like I'm saying this like retrospectively, like thinking back at like why I did these things deeply. Like there was definitely an interest in like studying and stuff, but I feel like that was a reason. So I'm seeing this a lot where young men, they're like, yeah, I'm not there yet, right? I'm gonna get rejected. They might not even propose to anyone, but they're like, yeah, I'm not there, right? Either they don't have a job, they're still at uni, or they have a job but it's a basic job, or these kind of things, and they're just not even really proposing. They're just like kind of boiling it up inside, like and it's like frustrating for them. And I've heard of a lot of like low confidence issues and these things.
I was going to ask that actually.
Yeah, and I felt like that for sure. I felt like, it's funny that I'm saying this now, because around the time when I got married, I was very much not like that. I was very much like, look, this is my path in life, like with or without a wife, like I'm just doing my thing. And yeah.
So going back to that low confidence thing, because I was going to ask what your opinion is on that, because I don't want to say I've never struggled with lack of confidence. No, that's not what I want to say. But I was going to say, like, I can imagine there's definitely brothers out there that the thought of trying to approach anyone or a family or whatever is just absolutely nerve-wracking. How the hell am I going to do this sort of thing? So do you think that's something a lot of Muslim guys struggle with?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Because
no one's ever admitted it. No one's ever said it to me. Like I've spoken to brothers about getting married. Nobody's ever said, and you can imagine no one would ever say, "Oh, I can't find the confidence. I just don't know." Nobody's ever said it out loud. They've always said everything else.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's money. It's this. I'm not ready. But no one ever
no,
says
but
the confidence thing.
Money is code language for confidence, low confidence, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Because if like the place my mind was when I actually did get married was I could be working as a cashier, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll get married. I'll be a good husband. Like you should marry me, right?
Yep.
But before that, I could have been like the CEO of some big company, and I still wouldn't be really feeling it. But I wouldn't be feeling confident about myself. And I think a lot of it, that's what I'm saying, saying that you don't earn enough money yet. It's the fear of rejection. It's the feeling that it's like the girl who thinks she's ugly. It's like, but then not just this, she feels she's ugly, then she has to be the one to propose.
Yeah.
So can you imagine the fear of rejection? Like the level will be so high. So the version of that for a guy is, I don't earn much money, I don't have a car, or my car's like Akhi Tweet's car back in the day, right? And and it's like, now I'm gonna propose to someone, and I'm gonna propose to someone who's like, I think she's like really good looking, she's like perfect, I want to marry her for sure, right? So I put her on this pedestal. I see her as like amazing.
It's not happening, is it?
Yeah. So it's like, damn, I don't want to get rejected. I'm just gonna wait and hope that she doesn't get married to someone else, because maybe in like 3 years or something I'll be ready at that point.
it depends how much backing you've got as well, because you know, I would say, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like I kind of did it. I approached my in-laws and stuff on my own in that sense. Like I spoke to my wife and I got her dad's number, and then contacted him, and then I told my family, come with me and let's go.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
So, but I can imagine if you're stuck in that side of the fence, then you would speak to your family first and be like, oh, this I'm really interested.
Yeah,
you might speak to your mum, for example. I'm really interested in this person. Yeah. Can dad come and speak to her dad or something like that?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how are you gonna approach? You know? So.
But also, that is 100% true, and I think a lot of like what is spread on social media amongst the religious crowd is like, if you're a young man, you want to get married, don't go in anyone's DMs, don't do this, don't do that, don't mess around. Like, get her dad's number and call him up. But this large portion of the Muslim brothers, they're not gonna feel the confidence to do that ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
But
right?
And they would probably feel like, depending on who the sister is, or we feel like, oh, I'm just another one of many messages that are in her inbox right now.
Maybe, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, do you know
what?
But
like, what I wanted to say, bro, is like,
go on.
Even the way you did it, it's not a very traditional way whatsoever anyway, right? It's like the traditional way is that your parents would be the first contact. Or not even your parents actually would be via a third party a lot of the time, right?
And that's maybe a cult. Well, I don't know. I basically looked at like it was all new to me. Do you know what I mean? Getting married is obviously all new to me in the sense that I wasn't even aware of how people got married.
Yeah.
You know? Like I knew that, I was trying to think of how my mum and dad got married. Well, my dad was very close friends with my uncle, my mum's brother, and he was very close friends with my granddad. So it kind of just happened naturally that way. He could just speak to them. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
He knew of my mum quite well because she's part of that family. You get me? So, but approaching a complete stranger in that regard, do you know what? In retrospect, alhamdulillah, Allah saved me from a lot. But in retrospect, I'm like, I didn't do any checks. Like, I didn't I couldn't ask anyone, what do you think about this family? Do you know anything? I remember my wife said to me once, and I need to double check if this was true, but apparently, like, one of her uncles came down to my city and started doing like background checks on me and asking at the masjid and all this stuff, and I had no idea. You know what I mean? So, like, they had a family unit to do that, but I certainly didn't send anyone up to London and do my checks. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
and that's dangerous, wallah. That can be dangerous. Because especially from the guy's side, I feel, because like the girl's side, like her dad will kind of suss him out a bit. The uncle will go and check him out, whatever. But the guy is like, she looks amazing, I'm on it. Like, he won't do no checks other than looking at her, right? I'm simplifying a little bit, but I know this is a thing, right? It's like, if you like the look of her, you kind of drop all your other criteria, like sometimes, Yani.
That's the problem with lie, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like it's something that if the guy was like still single at 26, 7, 8, he would be more discerning. Right, he would actually be able to like keep his wits about him. But when you're like that 22, 3, whatever, it's a bit more like just like, she looks good, I'm going for it.
Speaking about looking good and stuff, and it goes to both men and women. Do you think that's another reason why people delay? Do you think people delay because they might have an option of somebody, but they just think they might be able to get somebody just a bit better looking, or just a bit better this, or just a bit better that?
Yeah, 100%. And this is what the guy was saying in the podcast, is like, it's that choice thing, and it plays out in so many areas of our life, not just marriage. It's like, I'm on Uber Eats and this place is rated, 4.8, but I want the 4.9. I want the pizza place with the better rating, or I want a bigger discount than this one's, right?
I can't tell you, I'm not going to put any any brothers on blast, right? I'm not going to mention no names. I have so many brothers, time and time again, sitting in my car, and we're chatting about this topic, and they're not married, and when they're just talking, they're asking my opinion. You know what? Oh, I found this sister, this and this and this and this, but I'm just not sure about. I'm like, well, you're not sure about. Every single person you'll ever meet, you'll not be sure about them in a particular thing.
That's true.
Nobody's going to be 100%. You're just going to have to pick the battle that you're comfortable battling. That's all it is. No one you're ever going to marry is going to be like, have every single thing just the way you want it. Just find the things that you're uncomfortable with. You're going to have things to be uncomfortable with, and pick the one that you're going to be willing to sacrifice, or willing to battle through, or willing to have patience with. That's just the reality. But what I keep finding, Akhi, is I will find brothers that they'll have a sister that kind of hits all their sort of likes criteria or whatever, but there might be one particular thing, and that thing just grows in their head way bigger than the reality of what's necessary. So whether that's the looks, whether that's a certain family cultural thing, whether that's sort of location thing, all these there could be just an isolated problem, but without that problem, they're 10 out of 10 perfect. Well, just be prepared to give and take. But unfortunately, I think with a lot of people, it is my way or the highway, especially brothers. I think with a lot of brothers, it's like, no, it has to tick every single box. Otherwise, what's the point?
I think like preferences are given too much of a, too much weight. What I mean by that is, the way specifically like how she looks, that's a preference. It's not a thing, right?
Right.
What her background is, whether she is educated, not educated. These are all preferences. Yeah. The actual, criteria is like, okay, her manners, her family values, her, focus on, getting, pleasing Allah, maybe the way she dresses. These are like not so much preferences. This is like literally like the minimum that Allah even recommends. Yeah. So. So I think people weigh the preferences too heavy, right? Like if I'm trying to think of the equivalent for a man, but for the woman, there's that hadith. If he's got the manners and the religion, like just go with it, right?
Absolutely.
All right, and that's not giving any weight to preferences, right?
I mean, what the reality, bro, for all these brothers is like, did the prophets reprimand their wives? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Were there occasions where the prophets reprimanded their wives for a certain thing? So if the prophets had wives that weren't 100%, everything ticked that box, what makes you think you deserve that? Accept the flaws. There's going to be, and when I say flaws, there could be flaws, and there also could be things that just aren't your preference.
Yeah.
Just be ready to accept that.
Yeah.
Because Akhi, you're I say it like I'm speaking to you, but you don't have this problem. But whoever I'm speaking to, whoever's listening, you're one step away from something absolutely beautiful, which is having this family. Once you've got a family, all of that stuff, that preferences, that nothing matters anymore. All that matters is the core that you picked them for. Will this woman be a good mother to my children? Will she be able to hold this family well? Does she have the manners and the stuff that she can pass on to my kids? From that point onwards, you're not thinking about all this sort of mundane and whatever materialistic and shallow stuff that you were thinking about before that was stopping you before. I mean, look, I think I'd advise everybody, subhanAllah, to look at their own mothers, right, and the love that their mothers had given them and the love that their mothers had, and if you can see, you find a sister that's capable of giving that kind of love to their kids, to their family, to being that woman around that family, to the point, like I look at the way my kids look at my wife, and how much they love her and how much she does for them, etc. I'm like, yeah, I made the best decision in my life. Absolutely. I don't regret my decision in the slightest, ever. Be that person. Don't start thinking, listen, you I don't want to say anything too much, but you know what I mean? You're not going to look 10 out of 10 every single day. I don't look 10 out of 10 every single day. That's not reality. And you spoke about social media warping people's perspectives earlier. It does. Actually, I see news articles and stuff of like women that just given birth. They take a photo with their baby, and you could tell they just caked up in makeup. They must have. I'm not thinking of the picture. I'm thinking of, so you actually took some time out just after labor, put loads of makeup on, and took a photo of your baby just for that post. And then a woman will look at that and say, oh wow, look, she's just given birth. Look how good she looks.
That's the glow, bro.
Yeah, look at that's the glow. honestly, stuff like that, man. So it's just we can.
And that's why, for example, that's why, like advice I given to some people is, you must be attracted to her, but you don't need to have your like jaw drop when you see her, right? Because I feel like, look, even if she's not attractive, she can, like, you know how things go these days. You can make yourself attractive, right? You can make yourself attractive. However, I feel like you need to give weight to the things that are very rare. All right. So the things that are very rare, and the things that actually will make you happy as a husband, is a wife who's very respectful and obedient to you. Yeah. Like literally, that will make your life happy life. Happy life. Yeah, seriously, absolutely. Man. Yes, you at the same time you need to be attracted, but you need to be attracted not like wowed. You need to be attracted. But if she's like respectful to you, that's all you need. Like, you know, we know ourselves as men. If our wife respects us, like, that's like everything, right? That's everything, man. So, but this thing of being respectful, obedient is, you could say, it's rare. So therefore, if you find a girl who's a respectful, obedient, she seems like she's like that. See how she interacts with her father, for example, and she seems like she's that kind of woman with those kind of values and manners. Then look, man, don't give so much weight to these other things like that. You know that's something that will like do you a lot of favors in your marriage. You know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that goes to show the barakah and the blessing of lowering the gaze, right? And having years and years and years worth of lowering the gaze, okay? Because femininity naturally attracts men. Femininity naturally attracts masculinity, okay? That's why, like, you could hear, a man could hear the voice of a female and they could be attracted to just the voice alone, and they wouldn't even know what the woman looks like, okay? A blind man, I remember watching, what was it? God, there was a film about Ray Charles once, and he was this thing about he could touch the wrist of a woman and know how beautiful she is, or something along those lines. Do you know what I mean? So even that, yani, it's describing that. So Hur al-Ain described in the Quran. You've never even seen one, but you just take Allah's word for it, so to speak, that they're beautiful. So that's part of the femininity being described in the Quran there, right? So what I'm trying to say with that is that a man's mind is poison, bro. In this day and age, a man's mind is poison. And if you're doing that thing, which is what you kind of alluded to earlier, about, like, you know, looking on a menu, so to speak, where you're just like flicking, and that is, you know, that is the Tinder and all that kind of dating apps and stuff. I don't know how those ones. I know how the non-Muslim ones work because they're so popular. Like, I know Tinder, it's like swiping through posts, isn't it? So it's like swiping left, right. So imagine the psychology behind that. Like, your marriage search becomes like a game of Tinder, where it's like, okay, like you said earlier, this one 7.8, but what if there's a 7.9? But found a 7.9. What if there's an 8.0? All right, okay, I found an 8.0. What if there's do you know what I mean? So you just keep grass is greener. But actually, if you'd never seen a woman in your life, hypothetically, let's just say, never seen a woman in your life, right? So as in, you've lowered your gaze to the most that you possibly can do. The moment you have any interaction with a woman, really, no matter who she is, you'll be like this, bro. Honestly, you'll be like, whoa, this is like, she's amazing. Oh my God. And that happens, bro. Like, you see that. Why do you think that the people that you would consider are low league men and women, those are unattractive, you know, by today's standards, but all over the world they're getting married? All over the world they have no trouble getting married. In fact, sometimes you'll find, excuse my opinion here, but sometimes you'll find some of the most hideous people with so many kids.
Hideous is a strong word.
No, honestly, I'm not just saying that in a looks way, but I'm saying it in the life choices way, right? In like, okay, they're not just the way they look is out of their own actions, whether they're like heavy smokers or heavy drinkers, or do you know what I mean? Like, they look after themselves, that kind of thing, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Because of their lifestyle, they get all these kids from all different women. Like the Easy E kind of, I don't know.
But objectively, if you were to look at them, you'd say, oh my God, they're hideous. But how many? Who's sleeping with all these people? Do you know what I mean? So that's what you're thinking. So it's like, separate yourself from all the talk and all the noise, because really and truthfully, that is what's going to purify this whole thing for you. There's a lot of blessings, obviously. Look, anytime you avoid sin, Allah puts blessings. You avoid something for the sake of Allah, Allah gives you that which is better. If you can avoid looking, you can avoid chatting, you can avoid all the other stuff, then I'll never forget this story. Do you know what? I'll share this story, even though I probably don't know it very well, and I don't know who told me this story. But when I started practicing, somebody told me this story. And it was, very briefly, it was this very feeble, maybe nerdy Muslim student, okay? And he was at university studying science, some sort of science degree. Anyway, they always used to pair up to do projects and stuff, and he would always like try not to pair up with any women, etc. There was this popular non-Muslim girl in that class. Apparently, she was super attractive. Everybody was chatting to her, blah blah blah. But this Muslim boy would never talk to her, just wouldn't bat her an eyelid, etc. Eventually, they got paired together to do this job, and he still was very like not really talking to her and all this stuff. And he was a very practicing brother. She was curious as to why that was the case. Why is this guy like everybody's always all over me, and this guy just doesn't care whatsoever, right? And eventually, obviously, they're forced to talk. He basically explained to her about Islam. He explained to her Dawah. He explained to her the respect that he's trying to offer her by not being part of that crowd, etc., etc., etc. She found out more about Islam. Long story short, she became Muslim, and they ended up getting married.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean?
Wow!
And that just shows you like that kind of level of. I don't remember who told me the story. I know it's true, but I don't remember where I'd heard it. But
it's like he's looking like that, and Allah brought her like that.
Can you see, like, you know, that's an example in action there of like what lowering your gaze can have. And listen, even if it wasn't the most beautiful girl in the class, so to speak, even if it wasn't, whoever he'd marry would be the most beautiful girl to him, because he'd lowered his gaze for so long. He'd avoided women for so long. He doesn't know what women are. He doesn't know how to. This is all he knows. Do you understand what I mean? So of course it's beautiful. If I was to show you, Aki, sorry to finish on this. If I was to show you one diamond, bro, right, you'd look at that and say, wow, subhanAllah, that's amazing, that's so beautiful. But if I was to walk you into a jeweler's store, you'd be looking at every single thing, comparing it to each thing. Yes or not?
I can't make my mind up between the rose gold and the 22 carat and the...
Absolutely.
You know, I was thinking, you know, everyone criticizes the swiping culture, yeah. Muzmatch has it has swiping. I feel like the biggest problem is that when you're presented with that card or whatever it is on the screen, right, and you can swipe left or right or whatever, what are you being presented with? Like, what information, right? If you were being presented with, and this is why it's not there, because it's hard to like condense it into a short piece of information. But if you were like, respectful, manners, this and that, right? If you could have that like quick on the thing, then I'll be like, that might actually work, right? But what you're seeing is stuff like, oh, got master's degree, 25 years old, look like this, wears hijab, like basic information that is not that useful. And so people are judging each other on the first kind of interaction of things that aren't actually what you're really, you know, is going to help you to decide.
Yeah. So what I've just searched Tinder just to look at the what's the word? Just the preface. Of
the info that you get when you.
Yeah. So it's like a photo, and then it will have name, age next to each other, and then you'll have job. So this person says photographer, and then it says what university you're in, and then it says how far they are away from you. That's it. That's and what, and then I don't know if there's a profile that you click on or whatever, but that's, I'm assuming, and then it's obviously got the X or the love heart, so I'm assuming yes or no or whatever. So that's the info that you're getting, really.
So, you know, and I think like there are some like dating apps where you meet people based on interests, and so I think that would make more sense, right? It's like if you're into I don't know, like you're into football, you're into gaming, whatever, you know, you might like, it'd be better information there compared to like these other what you just said, you know. But as Muslims, that's what I'm trying to say, like as a man, you know, right, if your wife is like respectful, obedient, and she's attractive to you, like that's pretty much 80% of the way there. So But the thing is, you can't condense the stuff around her values and how her family is and how serious she is about pleasing Allah. You can't like put that in a quick piece of information, and that's why it's hard to do that with an app.
I'm looking at the Muzmatch one now just to compare, but it doesn't look that different. You know, I don't know if you saw that advertising campaign that was going on in the UK regarding Muzmatch, and it was like this brother put a billboard up saying help so-and-so get married, and that obviously ended up being a very long-winded Muzmatch advert. It's the same thing. It says Ahmed 34. It's actually him, it's a photo of him.
Okay.
And it says his job, doctor, and then it's got his ethnicity, Moroccan Arab, and then United Kingdom. That's it.
Moroccan, one of your boys. Can you share your screen? Let me see it. Okay, so that's what the profile looks like. There's not much information there. Okay, so it says... Okay, so it says his job, where he is, his like ethnicity, and his location.
It has a little thing here, so I'm assuming you can scroll down and read it.
It's like a...
I love the simple
things. It's like a slogan. I love the simple things in life and want someone fun to share them with.
You know, this was making me think... This was making me think of... LinkedIn, because obviously I made a LinkedIn account and I was talking to you about it, and then I went briefly onto your one, and I was like, man, Amin's got a nice little bio there, and I was going to ask you to write mine because I couldn't figure out how to speak about myself. But yeah, like doing that would be an absolute headache. And I know I've had, you have those conversations when you're going to get married. Like I know when I first met my wife, and I spoke to her, it's like she didn't know who I was. Like, tell me a bit about yourself. I was like, how the hell do I do this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I've got brothers, bro, and I'll say I've got brothers that send me messages with their bio. I had one yesterday.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me. Yeah. This brother, may Allah bless him, sent me 4 photos of himself, a huge thing, and just detailing his. I'm not going to read out what he said, but I'm going to let's just see the kind of stuff that he noted. And this is like a typical marriage bio. So he started with his age, his height, his physique, his ethnicity, his Islamic background, his degree, his hobbies. He's got a paragraph on his hobbies, paragraph on his personality traits, and then he's got like a section about what he's looking for. And even in that section, he spoke about the age that he wants, so younger, height he spoke about, physique. He's actually defined what physique. I'm not even going to say what he's written. Islamic background and the level of hijab, all right, and then personality traits. So when you're that specific, and this is one of the brothers I've spoken to about this kind of thing. I've had many nights with him. When you're that specific, you've already closed off so many potential people that actually would have benefited you.
Yeah. What kills me about it is that, I feel sorry for someone who's gonna put the height as a criteria, like from the offset, right? So imagine, like, okay, if you like, you seem to be a good fit for somebody. You met their family, you met them, and then it turns out, the girl's like taller than you, right? And you just feel kind of stupid next to her or whatever. Yeah. I understand at that point, but from the offset, like filtering out all of the women who might be a certain height, it just seems like a very superficial, like useless.
It's a Gen Z symptom. This, isn't it?
I don't
it's
know,
like
man.
I don't know, man. I feel like maybe we're the last of a dying breed, bro, because every guy I speak to speaks like this.
No, but we need to help them, man. Like, they don't realize, like, maybe deep down he thinks, look, if my wife is 2 inches shorter than me, I'll live a happy life. Like, maybe he thinks that. But if he doesn't think that, we need to wake him up and make him realize that, look, it won't make any difference how tall she is.
Bro, like we spoke about this before, didn't we? We did an episode. That's what I was trying to find earlier. That episode where I spoke about
yes.
people that spoke my sisters and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And it was only then that I realized the I don't want to say pandemic, but the issue, the wide scale issue that we've got going on right now.
Yeah.
Well, because I was just like, oh my God, I really thought men thought like me, and they don't.
Yeah.
I really thought it wasn't that tough, but it is. And I am a bit flabbergasted and stuff, and I still am. You know what I mean? But I don't remember thinking like that. I don't remember having a criteria. I don't remember sending out a criteria. I think initially maybe you don't. But the thing is, I don't. At the same time, I must admit, and once again, I need to always recognize my privilege. I didn't struggle. I found somebody I liked. I approached their family. We all met. Everything was good. Yes, there were road bumps along the way. I remember my nikah was cancelled 4 days before it happened.
Yeah.
I had to wait a whole year, right? I'm not saying there wasn't difficulties. Imagine that. So, but we got through in the end. Do you understand? But there wasn't an issue with compatibility, and I went with the core principles you were speaking about. One of the reasons why I was reassured, and obviously this is another tip, I guess, for guys. One of the reasons why I was reassured and I didn't feel like I had to do too many checks was that I knew that her father was quite a tough man, in the sense that he had probably tough expectations of her. And I knew that she had 2 brothers that were always with her, like literally throughout her whole life. So I was just like, well, there's no wiggle room there, really, is there? And she's got so many uncles as well. So like straight away, you've got all these male figures that are basically all your mahrams. So you're surrounded by mahrams that are very... whether religious.
So you're saying someone like that can't go off the rails? Is that what you mean, or?
No, I'm saying they can, but I'm saying it's less likely because you're going to have so many people watching over that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to have so many people involved in monitoring that situation that if they're displaying as quite religious online, at least, and everything you can see, this is before you even approach them. Once you approach them, then they start talking about hadith and stuff, then maybe Allah knows best. But if you're from the outset and you can see there's a lot of deen interest, a lot of stuff's being spoken about, this is obviously for social media, if you're looking at social media, then you assume the best, and we should always assume the best of each other. Yes, you're going to have to take precautions. Yes, if you know somebody that knows them, then ask. Do you understand what I mean? Like, of course, those are traditional things that should be done. But some people are quite discreet and they don't want to ask people. They don't want to do that.
Call me old school, bro, but I think this actually works, yeah? I think you can judge someone, like a man or a woman, for marriage, like 50% up to 80% just by their family. Right?
Possibly.
Like, when I met my father-in-law before my wife, obviously, and like I just like knew what kind of person he was based on just meeting him for like an hour or something. I was like, yeah, I know this kind of person, what this kind of person is like. I was like, yeah, so these kind of people, like I know them, they have these kind of values and this kind of person and blah blah blah. But I'll tell you why that was doable for me is because he's an Algerian man, like who like lived it, who studied in the UK and stuff. Like, halas, I know what those kind of people are. Like, he's from a certain generation. He's born and raised in Algeria, and halas, you know, I could tell he's like, okay, you have Algerians, so out of Algerians you've got subcategories. Like, he would be in like the educated Algerian category. He would be in the educated religious Algerian category, and that group of people, like I know them, like, and I know what their values are like. And from the way he was in his house and interacted with, you know, his wife and this and that, I could tell, like, okay, what kind of things he would have passed on to his daughter.
Yeah.
And from that, like, I would be comfortable just from like seeing how his dad was, her dad was.
It depends, doesn't it? It depends, like what kind of direction you're coming into this from. So you could have a well-known family, and they're very well known, and they're quite, you know, as in well known to you. You know their manners, you know their akhlaq, etc.
Yeah.
And then you kind of know, oh wait, they have a daughter. Oh, actually, I'd wonder if I should. And you go at it from that angle. You come at it with family first angle.
Yeah.
But if you come at it from the other angle, you're aware of this sister, for example. You're aware that she's quite good, etc., etc. And then you find out, oh, her family aren't practicing, or her family aren't even Muslim, or
Yeah.
do you understand?
But I think the same applies there,
do?
by the way.
Well, I think it. I was going to go on to that. Yeah, you're right. I think it applies with the things that are what we'd call not necessarily ingrained in religion or tied to religion, like you know, like soldered onto religion, in the sense that anyone can have these things, anyone can have these characteristics. So like manners, their level of manners is something that can easily influence you. When you learn about the deen, although good manners are promoted in the deen, no doubt, they're not necessarily always explicitly known. We just assume what good manners are based on what our family do. We assume what manners and expectations are based on what our family are all about. So, you know, here's an example. We spoke about this before, about calling up people all the time. You know, I don't call my auntie, my uncles in the UK, like locally. Don't call them at all. But when we meet each other, it's not beef. Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in ages, blah, blah, blah. It's love and respect. That's good manners to me, you know. But to my wife, that's horrible manners. I should be calling them every week, every day. I should always be in touch with them. So these little things that you wouldn't realize, and that's what you drew attention to. You said about you know them through their family. If you know their family in this particular way, then they're likely to bring that. If their family aren't practicing, or they're not even Muslim, but they're so tight knit as a family, then you know that you've got somebody who values family, that has family values there, has this family structure, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But if you've got practicing family, they're all praying, but they don't have a family unit, and they're all over the place, and one person's here, one person's there, then you might not have somebody that values that, what you want, which is like a very tight family unit. You want to have kids, you want to be, you know, your wife, she could be practicing, she could be, mashallah, but she might not even want kids now. She might not want kids ever. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she wasn't raised in that kind of environment.
So the overall point is, yes, you can judge a lot about someone from just their parents and their siblings and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And actually, especially like from a man's perspective, if you meet her dad, like her dad, she's going to see her dad in most cases, except for the case where, you know, the daughter hates her dad, and sometimes that happens, right? She gets kind of traumatized by that. But in most cases, the girl is going to see her dad as the ultimate man. So you're going to meet the guy that she's going to compare you to, and you got to see, like, okay, do I kind of agree with this guy? Am I on the similar wavelength and this and that? Because if you're very, very different to her dad, she might just not rate you, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I can see that.
But I think, like, I think a lot of people like in the West, they don't value what the family is like. Like they want to marry, not they want to specifically, but they would be cool with, and they might even find this a little bit like exciting and adventurous. They would marry the practicing girl, really religious, and her family's not practicing at all, and the family's like not even good. Like imagine you don't even rate your in-laws. Like I feel like it's difficult because you know your kids are going to be spending time with them.
But there's also an element of the savior complex, okay, of like you've got this sister who's clearly clearly like trying her best, but she's in a family that isn't or isn't even Muslim, and then you feel like, oh, but she would flourish so much better if she was in a Muslim family. You know, I could offer her so much. We could make a Muslim family. What she's longing for, she will never get unless she leaves or Allah guides her family. Do you get me? So it's like who does that? So there is like a beautiful thing there of like, oh, we can start a Muslim family together. You can have what you never had. You know, and yes, you have to monitor the engagement between the kids and stuff. I mean, you don't really think long term about that too much. You're thinking, oh my God, there's an opportunity here to start a family. And I'm sure there's Muslim sisters all over the world that are like that. I know there is. I know there's, you know, when you go to any Muslim country, Akhi, like a lot of the time, the women are the ones who put the hijab on way before the man will ever start praying and practicing and growing a beard, right? It's the women that you see in our villages and our towns, you know, traditionally, that are the ones that are covered, that you can identify them as Muslims from far away. But you'll find the men, they're not necessarily doing that all the time. You know, maybe more so than not. At least that's from my experience. That's what I see. Okay. I don't know about the rest of the world. I just see it from what I see. And because of that, there's an urge for women because they find stability. They find security in Islam. They find their rights in Islam. You know, they find that it's the vices that Islam tells us to stay away from and the things that hurt them the most. You know, when it's alcohol and there's alcohol in the house, they get hurt the most. You know, when it's drugs, when it's gambling, when it's all this stuff, when it's cheating, adultery, the women get hurt the most. So it's actually, Islam is their saving grace in that sense. So they will turn to Islam, they will turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all they want is somebody like that. But if they come in and they're growing up in a family, an abusive household, a household where they're you know, always being dominated on, always being punished, always being made fun of for trying to practice, etc., all they have is Allah to turn to. They're just hoping that Allah sends somebody that can they can get married to and go. You know, my I don't know if my mother my mum won't have a go at me for saying this, but I remember my mum saying that when she got married at 19, bro. So years ago, obviously, she got married at 19, and I remember her saying that it wasn't about practicing and all this stuff. Deen wasn't necessarily a big focus in in this time in the UK up north at this time. So I remember her saying something like, "I just wanted to leave the house. Like I just needed to get out of the house." I know you can imagine she had a lot of siblings, loads and loads of siblings. It was probably very cramped and all this other stuff. But imagine that idea of like, I just need to leave the house. I need to be around Muslims. I need to have a Muslim, male figure in my life, whatever it is. And that doesn't. And we always think of that as being an exclusively revert problem, but it's not. You know, there are plenty. I know that because I lived it for a bit. I lived that life of like, oh, I'm fighting with my dad all the time because I'm practicing and he's not. Do you get me? And alhamdulillah, obviously my father passed away and Allah forgive all of his sins. But I will never disregard that was a thing that happened because it makes me think of the future. It makes me think of my son, bro. If my son was to come to me one day and say, "Dad, there's a sister, you know, she's really good, blah, 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 blah." And I looked at her family, and I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But then I look at the sister and I can tell, oh, she's trapped here. This isn't her choice. Yes, she may pick up things that aren't that great. She may do. She may have an anger problem. She may have a talking back problem. She may have a manners problem. But her intention is good and she's trying to get there. She's just in the bad environment. How much of it is biology and what's it called? What's the difference? What do they say is, you know, how much of it is like inherited and how much is it environmental factors?
Yeah.
So if you take somebody who's been raised in such a harsh household, despite having a nice environment. So imagine this, like
nurture and nature, that's it.
Nurture and nature, that's it. How much of it is going to be parents' inherited characteristics versus this is the environment I've grown up in, and if I could just get out of this environment, I'm sure I'd be a better person. You know?
So, yeah. There will always be some people that they're like, they'll do that, you know. And we need people that will do that, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
You don't want to be that guy, then.
Yeah, I guess I'm risk averse, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
no, I think
speaking
it's
of these,
honourable,
speaking of these preferences, right? So what the guy was saying, you know, you're talking about actually, you know, sometimes the women are really suffering from the lack of Islam in the household. This guy was talking about there was a period of time where it was difficult to bring over your wife from like Pakistan, right? Like the men in the UK getting married from Pakistan, the government made it difficult to like bring people over and visas and all that. So he said during that time, you got this phenomenon of Pakistani men marrying Polish women.
Right.
Yeah. And he said that Polish women, there's quite a big like alcoholism problem like amongst Polish men. And, you know, they suffer from the brunt of it, you know. And I can't even imagine, Yanni, what it's like to have someone in the house, like the leader, so-called, you know, of the household who's like drinking a lot. That's crazy, you know, anger problems, this and that. So they kind of like that, maybe about Muslims or Muslim men, and also Polish people are quite Christian, I believe, right? They have is it like the Russian Orthodox Church kind of influence?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Apparently that was a match, and that was happening a lot. You know.
You'll find that. Obviously, Islam is you know is a continuation of a long line of Tawheed. So you will find that traditional societies, monotheistic societies, women will seek refuge, I think, more in those kind of things, because there is a shame element. There is these things are not acceptable for women. You know, the alcoholism, and, you know, going out all the time and blah blah blah. It's still considered shameful in many societies, despite all of the vices that are in society these days and how much mixing. Yeah, you could walk through a city centre in the UK and you wouldn't know the difference. But actually, if you were to observe, and I've had to observe because of work and stuff, if you were to observe, there are still elements there, very faintly, of like, no, she can't do that. No, that's not acceptable. Do you know what I mean? So there is faintly, you can't get away from it. It'll always be the case. And I think, like we said, maybe those Polish women were trying to seek refuge. I'm not obviously going to paint a picture of all Polish men, but bro, I have encountered some drunk Polish men. many, and it is you know, it is very scary sometimes. SubhanAllah. But obviously I'm not saying all Polish men are like that. I think alcohol is a huge problem among men across the whole world. I know definitely in Tunisia it was a massive problem. Bro, I remember people would come up to me, SubhanAllah, they'd be drunk and they'd be reciting Quran to me. It was so, because they see me with a beard and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, I know about you, I know what you're about, and then they'd start reciting like Surah Al-Baqarah, and I'm like, bro, this guy's a halfer, then he's tipsy. You know, SubhanAllah. So yeah, don't think that, you know, this is why, like, my image of like the average Muslim is very scarred because of the environment I grew up in, because my average Muslim guy wasn't in the masjid. You know, he was just typical very, very sweaty man that would drink after work and would hardly do any work anyway, would be in the coffee shop all day. And then so stuff
that's
like
crazy, because I guess I wasn't exposed to that at all, pretty much, because I guess living in the Muslim world and stuff most of my life.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I only became aware that there was even alcohol in the UAE when I was like a teenager, like later teenager. I don't know, like, yeah, we were shielded from it, alhamdulillah.
Even in Zaire, bro, like when I was in Algeria, I remember like I crossed into like the Amazigh territory.
Yeah.
And I realized there was like a very big lack of Islam and Arab anything to do with Arabs, right? I remember, and I mentioned this before.
Where's
like,
this Tizi Ouzou?
Yeah, I remember going in there and someone made a joke, but I don't know how serious they were being, saying just try not to speak Arabic around here, you know, just speak English or whatever. And like there was road signs that obviously the government had put up, but they would graffiti out the Arabic and just leave the Amazigh text, so to speak. And then there were billboards, bro. Billboards of like alcohol being sold and actual bars advertised and stuff like that. Whilst in Tunisia, comparatively, Tunisia, a bar would exist, it would be there, but it wouldn't have a sign and it wouldn't be very obvious.
Low key.
You know? Yeah, it would be a low key sort of location.
Yeah.
So,
but I think
that kind of thing.
You know what someone was telling me the other day, actually, Tunisian guy actually, because he'd been to Algeria a few times. He said, you know, the Amazigh in Algeria, like he was saying that this idea that they're, you know, not that into Islam, they're a little bit secular, this and that. He's like, trust me, that's literally just the Tizi Ouzou lot. He's like the rest actually, and I've heard of this as well myself multiple times. Like the like Amazigh sometimes are the most religious ones.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. What I was trying to illustrate with that is just that there is an alcohol issue among our country,
definitely, bro. Actually, you know, like I would guess, you know, there's more drinking in Tunisia than Algeria, but I remember there was this article came out that even I went to Salat al-Jumu'ah in Algeria, and there was a khutbah about this drinking problem, and apparently it was like Algerian women are the highest drinkers in the Arab world. Yeah, like some crazy stuff, you know.
Really?
You know, maybe I'm getting it wrong exactly, but the point is that some number of alcohol related, you know, statistics are very high in Algeria compared to even, you know, in the Arab world. So yeah, it's a thing. I think though, when I went to Algeria, it was always like, because alhamdulillah, my family is like decent, so it's like it was always like, oh yeah, that's like a beer bottle on the floor, like let's get out of here, you know. That guy's drinking, okay, let's get out. It's always like very much like shame and very much like this is not good stuff, like get out of, you know.
Where I grew up in Tunisia, where my house is and stuff, it was like it was as prevalent as a Coke can, you know.
Oh really?
In the street. Yeah, like I it's burnt in my mind. I know what that can is. It's just one brand that they've got, bro.
Yeah,
it's literally everywhere. You won't see people drinking in the open. This is another thing. Yes, there's this particular bar that I know of, but you will see the guys. There's three places where I know people drink. All right, there's in that bar or in the bars and restaurants in more built up areas. In hunting parties, so because it's very rural and stuff, they go out hunting for boar, and it's like a big drinking party with shotguns and stuff. It's that very American style kind of.
Doesn't sound safe.
Everybody's wearing combat gear and stuff like that, and they're hunting for wild boar because there's two reasons they hunt for it. Number one, they hunt because it eats all the crops, and it's a very what's the word? It's a agricultural sort of area. But the second is actually they sell some of that stuff to tourists as well, which isn't right at all. But they do. They'll sell it to shops that will then sell bacon to tourists. And then the third place is under the tree at a wedding. Right. Honestly, like, you know, there's weddings where it's like just out in the open and stuff. If you look hard enough, right in the distance, back of the crowds and stuff, you'll see a tree and there's a bunch of cigarette butts, you know, lighting up at night, and you can tell they're all drinking there. Now they do that. It's always under the tree, either a wedding on Eid, subhanAllah, sometimes. Yeah. Actually, a lot of the time. Or the worst one is at funeral. The worst one is at, like, and it's, you know, I haven't necessarily been surrounded by that, but because I always grew up surrounded by women there, they would say to me, "I don't know, don't go over there, come back here." Do you know what I mean? Don't go. So it's like, because what will happen? You get drunk people coming up, getting involved in the wedding, and then going back to under the tree, and then they'll try and call you over. Oh, you know, you're the English kid. Come over. And then my mum would be like, "No, don't go over there." Do you know what I mean? That's how I grew up learning that you don't go under the tree. You don't go under the tree, subhanAllah. So, but bro, going back to the topic at hand, the marriage, just to sort of round that bit up, it is that issue of alcoholism and things like that. Because Akhi, I remember, I will never forget, Akhi, like women that I'd go to weddings in Tunisia, right? And the women would be happy and blah, 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 and everybody would be partying and stuff like that. But I know that man's got an alcohol problem because I've seen him under the tree, you know? And I remember coming back to the UK, and a year later, bro, that woman's face was just completely distraught all the time. And I would hear stories that you would hear her screaming of abuse and stuff because she would get beaten up by her husband. He was abusive, etc. That isn't isolated. That's everywhere. That's everywhere. The man comes home drunk. He lets his anger out on the woman. Obviously, you know about my work and stuff. The amount of alcohol-related domestics I've been to, oh my God, I can't, you know, it's infinite. You know, so I've seen all manners and colors of men, you know.
Yeah. And it just shows you as well, like how, you know, these ladies, they married Muslims, like, wallah, you can enter Islam from so many different doors. So many different doors.
Absolutely.
And, you know, actually on the flip side, like, maybe the women were, you know, they found that, you know, a good kind of refuge, you know, to marry someone outside maybe of the Polish crowd and a Muslim who wouldn't drink, etc. They found that to be a good thing. Also, what he mentioned is that East European women, they tend to be a bit more traditional, a bit more submissive, he was saying. So then the men kind of like that part as well. So he was giving all these stories about different trends, different matchups between different people, right? So another one was, and he was saying like, this is, ongoing thing. He said British Pakistanis, they like to go to Morocco to find wives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were kind of asking like, okay, why do they go Morocco and stuff? He was saying that I guess they said they find them beautiful, whatever, right? But why do the women, marry them? It's because, like, firstly, British people are very indirect. They're like indirect. That's part of the culture, right? On top of that, Desis are a little bit, compared to an Arab, they're very how do you say it? Chill, you could say. I don't know what the right word is. So compare that to a Moroccan man. Like a Moroccan man will be like, to his wife, he could be like very much more like hardcore and this and that and this and that, right? You know how it can go, yeah. So maybe the Moroccan women, they find that to be like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And like also, if you're a British Pakistani, you're actually practicing, and then you go to marry a Moroccan woman, like she might find like, okay, yeah, he's actually quite practicing as good as well. So
yeah. Also,
Moroccans are much more open-minded to this stuff, I feel. Like, if these guys came to Algeria, they wouldn't be getting married, I don't think, at all,
I think, I think there is something to say about just the natural kind of fascination with something exotic and far away.
Of course, there's that as well.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of it, at least when they're young. I remember there was a Tunisian girl that was like a relative of ours that got married to a Palestinian, and that was considered like, whoa, you married a Palestinian, like stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure that exists. I know, like, obviously a lot of my brothers are from one part of the world and they're fascinated with another part of the world, and that, what I mean, similar to what you said, do you understand? So it's just like, and that's the same thing. Like, my sisters are considered half Moroccan, so like when somebody does come and speaks to me about potentially marrying one of my sisters, I do have that in my mind, by the way. Like, that isn't something that slips my mind. I'm like, is this just like a fascination with the far away and exotic? So what sometimes happens, like, my mum will ask me to ask them this. She'll say to me, ask them why they didn't go for someone from their own neck of the woods. Why are they coming all the way around here? You know what I mean? Like, and it's a true thing. Like, my mum would say something like, let's say hypothetically, I'm giving a hypothetical one. This isn't pointed at anyone, but hypothetically, let's say it's a Pakistani person. Okay. She'd be like, there's so many Pakistanis in the UK. Why did you find, whilst we could argue, and I could argue, there's no Tunisian people in the UK that I know of. Like, there's hardly any. So we were kind of left with no kind of option. We straight away, we're going to open our doors a bit more. But my mum would always be quite sus. Like, she'd be like, figure that out first, because it is a reality. Some people just want to marry because it's exotic and it's far away and it's, so you have to kind of think in that regard as well.
But what you get as well is you get the full package. So, you might find someone from a certain country like very attractive, whatever, but she will also have a certain in her culture or her family, they will have certain expectations for the husband that you might not be used to as well. So it goes both ways, and you can't like you said, have your cake and eat it always. You gotta take the whole package. Yeah,
and that's it. I pray, and look, we'll wrap up with this final thing, and I'm sure we'll both agree, is that first things first, guys, learn to take a flaw or some preference that you're not keen on, because otherwise you're just going to be looking for the perfect forever. You're never going to get there. You're missing out on, like, I've got, alhamdulillah, you've got kids, I've got kids, like, alhamdulillah, we love what we've got. I'm sure we both agree with that. I'm so happy to be a father. I'm so happy to have my family.
Alhamdulillah.
I praise Allah every single day, and it's because I made that step. I didn't just start overthinking it and thinking about, but what if. No. Somebody comes to your door that is good, just like the advice of the Prophet ﷺ. If somebody comes to your door, they've got the manners, they've got the deen, then yeah, as long as it's like,
Allah.
Yeah, tawakkal ala Allah.
In Arabic we say tawakkal Allah. It doesn't mean trust in Allah. It means go for it.
Yeah, just
because
go for
it's synonymous. Yeah,
just go for it. If you're destined to be divorced, no matter what happens, you're going to get divorced. No matter what happens, you could be destined to have divorce written on your tablet, so to speak, and you could find a 10 out of 10 person that doesn't exist, but you find them and you get divorced because it was destined for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've just got to realize that these are your tests in life. You do the best you can for the sake of Allah, first and foremost. Let the chips fall where they may. Everything else, whatever. But let the go for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first.
Yeah, and do it with the right, like, do your part in it, like tie your camel, meaning, marry, like, have criteria that are based on the real goal. What's the real goal? It is to build a family, like you always say, which is true. To build a family, a stable family, which will be one of the bricks in the wall of the ummah, right? Not a cracked brick, not a brick that's going to have to be replaced or whatever, but a solid family. And to do that, you need to think, okay, what realistically am I expecting from a wife that will make me happy, and look for a wife like that. Don't compromise on those things that you know that you need. And in order to chase something else, like go for what would make a good family, a good partner. And I mean, we're talking to men and women here, right? So someone that would make a good family, solid family, not someone that you're likely to have problems with or divorce with. Ideally someone you get on with their family. So it's not just you're marrying a family, but you've got your in-laws behind you, backing you in your marriage as well, and vice versa. And your parents are backing the marriage as well. And you can build a strong brick in the wall of the ummah. Think of it from that point of view. Because if, like, this is what the guy was saying on the podcast, if this generation, if like we don't sort out this problem of a high divorce rate and this and that, then the trauma actually just gets passed on, and it will get worse, because then you end up where it's like everyone's parents are divorced. So what's going to happen to those kids? Well, they're more likely to get divorced then, And divorce, by the way, someone might think divorce not the worst thing in the world.
No, of course.
And I think in the past it was easy and it was better because of the community element. But when your community, and in terms of like the people you can really, really rely on, if that's just your mum, dad, brother, sister, wife, kids, if that's it, then divorce does actually have more of a scarring effect on people, right?
And there's also the perception of what divorce is in different families. So I will say this with praise to my family, not to myself, but to my family, especially my mum's side of the family. Divorce isn't the end of the world for them. And the reason I say that is because my wife was amazed at my family. One of my aunties was divorced in the past, right? My cousin is a son of her ex-husband. However, they both got remarried. So my auntie got remarried and her ex-husband got remarried, right? But they still have a relationship in the sense that my auntie will speak and engage and be friends with her ex-husband's new wife, so to speak. They've got kids. It's still family. It's all for the benefit of the child. Do you understand? They're amicable. When my cousin's dad's wife, his new wife, had children, those are his half sisters. So my auntie was involved in that process, helped out when she needed help in terms of childbirth and all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? So we all became a unit. We all became an extended family. And there's my auntie was my wife was saying, yo, in my culture, in my family, or where I'm from, that's like, once you're divorced, it's a straight cut off, nothing to do with you, you're dead to me, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But you can't have a working relationship for the sake of the kids that way. And we could go on about that forever, and I'm conscious
but
of time.
the proof, I think, is you said it was your aunt or uncle
who got divorced. It was my auntie that got divorced.
Your aunt, yeah. So she's from like rural Tunisia, right?
No, she's from Morocco, and her ex-husband was Moroccan as well.
Okay.
They had a child together. Oh, I don't know.
Rural?
Well, away from like north, and I think he was actually from south.
Yeah. The point is, though, that this is how, I believe from my information, Yani, this is how societies were, and that's why you hear these stories of the Sahaba divorce married. The Attica, who's like she married 9 different Sahaba, and they're all shuhada. She's known for that. And this is because it's more of this rural community closeness, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, you get divorced one day, you could get married, a week or a month or two later, you kind of thing, because everyone's close near, and again, it's like divorce will happen, not because of anyone being bad, but maybe just for whatever reason. And so you can't have I feel like a community where divorce just can't happen without there being huge collateral damage is a weak, like an unresilient community,
It's also a God-fearing one as well. It's also a community where that is aware that they're going to be questioned about everything that goes on. It's also a community that isn't going to exile somebody just because they've wronged one person or they've disagreed with one person. Because what happens is like a whole entire family will turn on a person. One of my uncles got divorced years ago, right? Years and years ago. My cousin is literally the same age as me, and they got divorced when she was really young. So, I'm 28. Let's say 25 years ago, hypothetically, they got divorced. My uncle's ex-wife, who's not even Muslim, bro, still calls my mum to this day, and they still chat for hours. To this day, akhi. To this day. So I grew up in a household where we just kept connections. Just because I knew you for 20 years, and suddenly you divorced my family member, I'm not going to speak to you ever again. No, sorry. My mum will apologize to her on behalf of my uncle, because she might agree with her a bit more than my uncle, or my uncle a bit more than her. Do you understand what I mean? This is the way he is, and blah blah blah, stuff like that. Yani, and I've always found that admirable about my family and my mom especially, and they've got that in them. Because guess what? The only people that suffer when you do that are the kids. If you don't have a relationship, look, if they were to cut her off, who are the kids going to go with? Kids are going to side with their mum. Well, then we've just lost two cousins. Do you get me? We've just lost cousins. They're never going to want anything to do with us. Well done. You've just cut the ties of kinship. It's a different maybe situation if you're single and you never had kids. But subhanAllah, if you got kids, man, you're just, you don't want the kids to be on your house, right? And the mum is obviously external to the situation, and you're going, yeah, but that's your mum, isn't it? Oh yeah, your mum's that way, and you're dissing their mum because you just cut her off from your life. No, subhanAllah, no. So may Allah guide us with that regard.
We have to think of from a community perspective, not an individual or even just nuclear family, but community perspective. And actually, this kind of topic, if anyone's interested, definitely go check out episode 146, especially the second half of that. That was where I brought Muhammad on, and we talked about like these traditional family setups and all these very interesting one. So this has been good. There's other things that was talked about, but maybe more controversial. So
what I want to do actually, and obviously we'll discuss this, but I want to get a guest on and talk about this topic from a complete different, because I think every time we've spoken about marriage, it's just been me and you.
What is another perspective that you think,
Yeah, I want to see a completely different perspective. I want to see someone maybe that has tried to get married so many times and isn't as comfortable speaking about the challenges they faced.
Okay.
I think,
or someone who's been divorced, or someone, like that. Yeah.
I feel like I definitely speak from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
Maybe you do as well, because I don't feel like you struggle too much into that.
Yeah, so, I was like you, like one shot, one kill kind of thing.
Yeah, baby, Call of Duty, let's go. Okay. Right. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. We'll be like, I'm cutting straight through, because I'm looking at the time and I have to go. I'm really sorry. Check out mynicepodcast.com. Get in touch with us if you want to ask questions. We haven't gone through them for a while, but we will get to them, and support the podcast on their website as well. We've got a PayPal thing there, and you know what? We're trialing, aren't we? We'll speak briefly about, we're putting out content and stuff, so we're going to see if we can get some help with our content that we're producing. So actually, this has been a really good episode, and I'm really excited to just put my feet up and not have to do much in terms of content, because it can be so exhausting sometimes with my really slow computer. But alhamdulillah, if you want to support the podcast in any way possible, get in touch with us. We'd always appreciate it. We've been going for almost 5 years or something now, I don't know, something like that, and we just want to keep going, bidnillah.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Yep.
جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.